Now, with that, let's get into the heart of the matter, the reason why we're here tonight, which is to hear this wonderful program from ADAPT and the project management team. So our program tonight is called Project Management Practice, Global Perspectives and Local Impact. We'll hear a little bit about the inception and evolution of the project management practice, how the department has developed an active culture of support for both virtual and hybrid teams. They will provide tips for and experiences with working with global units, which will be helpful, and also how their team is carving a new path for project management in the community. And this is a particularly interesting piece that I hope you will also find really fascinating. We have a little bit about ADAPT, but I won't get into that too much because I'm thinking that maybe Tess, Sophia, and Keisha will say a little bit more. But ADAPT agency is actually an agency that was founded in Denmark, based in Copenhagen in 1998. And it now has spread across several countries in Europe, but also across the pond here to the US and also South America. So 170 employees worldwide, and they focus on design, user experience, project management, e-commerce, and web application development. The US office here, or the Americas office, was established in 2019, and the headquarters was moved to Maine recently and is now based in Portland, Maine. In the Americas division, there are 20 plus team members, and we will be hearing from 3 of those team members this evening. And without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. We have Tess Trudeau, who is the Director of Project Management and Delivery at ADAPT Americas. We have Sophia Inman, who is their Senior Project Manager. And we have Keisha, their Project Manager and lover of dogs, including that cute little dog in her photo. So I will now stop talking and I will turn this over to the ADAPT team. Welcome, and we cannot wait for what you have to offer today.
Perfect. Thank you, Roseanne.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can now share yours.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks for getting those technology issues sorted. It was a good icebreaker. Awesome, Sophia, is that you sharing your screen? That's perfect. Okay, so why don't I start by we'll go through the agenda, and then as we all need, I think right now we'll do a little breathing exercise that Keisha will lead. So if you want to go to the next slide, Sophia. Yeah, so tonight we'll talk about, the things Roseanne just said. We will talk about our culture and our core values, how we manage a global team, how we hire the best PMs, and our transformational approach to projects and clients and everything. And then we'll leave plenty of space for questions and conversation after that. You want to go to the next? Yeah, so without further ado, Keisha, the most important part of this evening, I think I'll let you go ahead and walk us through this.
All right. Well, hi guys, I'm Keisha. And one of the things that we have started putting into our practice very mindfully are breathing exercises. So once a month with our team meetings, we do like to do a breathing exercise. In my previous life, I was a nurse. So this was an exercise that I learned in that capacity to help promote relaxation. And it can also be used anytime someone is stressed out or also wants to focus. So I personally still like to do this right before bedtime, especially if I've had a big crazy day. I used to use this tool with my patients to help them rest well or help them stay calm during stressful times. So that's where I'm coming from with this practice. So how we'll start is, of course, this is completely optional. And if you're not comfortable, then don't participate. But I hope that you do, because I think that this is a helpful practice, and you might find this a good tool for you in your daily life too. You can turn off your camera if that makes you more comfortable. And then I hope that if you do, we can all turn our cameras back on so we can see each other's lovely faces once we're done. Totally okay, just whatever makes you more comfortable. So first, we're all going to make sure that we're sitting in a comfortable position with our backs straight as our bodies comfortably allow. You know, what you want to do is be in a very neutral position. What I do for this is I picture that I have a string pulling up from the top of my head. And it stacks your spine up like bricks when you're a little kid. And that helps me find a nice upward, straight back situation that's comfortable. You want to make sure that your shoulders are relaxed. Pull them away from your chin. Have your face forward in a nice, neutral, comfortable position. Make sure that your seat is good. Go ahead and gently close your eyes and place your hands on your belly if you're comfortable doing so. So what we'll do now is breathe in through the nose, nice and slow, nice and deep. Let the air reach deep down into your lungs as you inhale. And your hands are going to feel your lungs expand, and you're going to notice your belly rise. So we were just checking in with our body and feeling that sensation. So you can exhale through either your nose or your mouth, and you're going to feel how your belly falls under your hands. So just take a few moments to have another deep breath at a relaxed pace, in through the nose and out through either your nose or your mouth. Just focus on the rise and the fall of your belly, the rise and the fall maybe of your chest, the rise and the fall of your lungs as they expand. So check in with the rest of your body. Are you comfortable? Do you need to move a little bit? That's totally fine. Go ahead and scoot a little bit if you need to. The point is to be relaxed and comfortable. So take stock of any sensations that you're feeling right now. Next, we're going to focus on the count of our breath. So we're going to count how many seconds we're breathing in and how many seconds we're breathing out. This is where it's more of a practice. So we'll do this by focusing our attention to the length of time it takes to breathe in and breathe out. We're going to breathe in through the nose, pause, and breathe out through the mouth. So take a few natural breaths. You can keep your hands on your belly if that helps you focus, or you can place them on your legs or at your side or on your armrests. Just take a few moments to notice how long you naturally inhale and exhale with your normal breathing pattern. All right. So here we go. We're going to count this time. Take a breath in through the nose, and as you breathe out, lengthen that breath. I'm going to help us count, okay? So breathe in deep through the nose. 1, 2, pause. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. Inhale. 1, 2, pause. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Continue the pattern. You can count to yourself. If at any time you feel lighthearted or you get an unpleasant feeling, just go back to your normal breathing until you're ready to try again. You can also adjust the count. The most important part of this technique is that breathing out is longer than breathing in. Keep going for a few more moments. And we can go together again. Inhale. 1, 2, pause. And breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe a couple more times. All right. When you're ready, come back to your normal breathing rhythm, your natural cadence of breathing in and out through your nose or your mouth, just your normal pattern. You can keep your eyes closed for a few more seconds and just check in with your body. How are you feeling right now? Did that help you feel more relaxed or more focused? Bring your awareness to the weight of your body on your seat, maybe your feet on the floor, where your hands are resting. And you can start to open your eyes and take a few more moments to resituate, get comfortable again, and bring your focus to your surroundings, what's around you in the room, your beautiful view, temperature of the air. And I hope that that was helpful for you guys, and hopefully relaxing and kind of resetting our focus here. Thank you for letting me lead this exercise. If you have any questions, reach out to me at any time. Thanks.
I'm muted. Thank you, Keisha. Awesome. All right, you guys, let's get started. Thanks to everyone for coming. Yeah, breathing is important. It's funny how we forget these things, you know, we're such a rush in our day to day, so it's always good to remember. All right, let's talk a little bit about who we are, just to introduce ourselves and sort of, you know, where we work and you know, where we're coming from, just so you guys have that context around us. So Roseanne mentioned a little bit about us already, but we were founded in Denmark in 1998 by Preston Wingard and Tommy David.
Sorry. If everyone can just mute themselves except the speakers, we'll have time for questions later, or you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Perfect. We currently have 6 offices across Europe and the USA, Portland, Berlin, Barcelona, Copenhagen, Kaunas, and Vilnius. I may not be pronouncing those right. You guys will have to correct me. And over 150 employees overall. You may notice that the numbers don't 100% match what Roseanne shared. Let's call that a testament to how quickly we've been growing in all of our business units over the past couple of months even. Great place to be. The US branch has grown to around 15 full-time people. Put out another offer today to another one, so we're still growing, and a handful of regular contractors since 2019. And we have our home base in Portland, Maine. But our employees work out of multiple states remotely and multiple countries, if we're being honest. So yeah, the US team has started calling ourselves the Americas team because we also have people in South America, including one of the best Drupal engineers in the world, we like to say, I think it's true, who is based out of Peru. We collaborate closely with Denmark and Lithuanian offices, both for management and oversight, and to collaborate on projects. Being part of a global team gives us so much insight into all the best things about each different culture and how they approach managing projects in the digital world. Go for the next slide. So yeah, Adapt is the people of Adapt. Let's introduce ourselves a little more. So I'm Tess. You can go back. Yeah, I'm Tess. I'm the Director of Project Management and Delivery for Adapt Americas. I've been managing projects and teams for close to 20 years now. And the more experience I have, the more I realize that a plan is only as good as your ability to pivot when things go sideways. And the best problems are the ones you get to solve with other humans who are invested and aligned in getting to the same goal. I live in Western Massachusetts with my husband, my 8-year-old daughter, and our 3 cats. And I love to make yummy food and share it with friends. Sophia and Keisha are my team of trusted managers and strategists that help me focus on the bigger picture of building up our department and Adapt Americas as a whole. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Inman. I live in Maine. I'm just north of Portland in Bath. Lovely little city right here on the Kennebec. I've been in project management for a long time, nearly 20 years now. What I love about project management is how we get to solve problems that other people are asking for help on. And when we frame it in such a simple way, it really gets me energized and makes me love what I do, because project management at the end of the day is achieving goals and reaching milestones and generally making the world a better place. And so project management really really aligns well with the values that I hold. So here in Bath, I live with my husband and my 9-year-old daughter, our dog and our cat. And you probably saw in my bio that I'm also a small business owner. My husband and I own a brewery here up in the Mid-Coast. And with that, I'll pass it to Keisha.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm Keisha. When I first became part of ADAPT, I was living in Portland, Maine. I am currently in Memphis, Tennessee. Although right this very second, I am in Savannah, Georgia. Just down here to be in the way of this Hurricane Ian. So I'm kind of like our Southeast girl at the moment. Really happy to be here. Project management is something that makes perfect sense, and I got here in a roundabout way. I already mentioned in my previous life, I was a nurse. And while I loved that so much, burnout is very real. So shortly before the pandemic, I learned how to code, and I was a back-end developer for a cancer research company based out of Nashville called Sarah Cannon. And we made apps for research nurses to help them. Ultimately, the goal is to find cures for these diseases. So I always knew that I wanted to be more in a project management role. And because of my previous experience as a nurse, I was able to actually really help with our road mapping and user journeys and all that stuff. And I was able to kind of just find my place there. So when ADAPT invited me to join them full time, I was more than excited to do that, because this is always where I felt I would be happiest. And so far, it's been really fantastic. In my picture, you see my dog, Sunny. She's like a 13-year-old little rescue. She's absolutely terrified of everything. If you drop your cell phone, she's going to like run. And who knows what that's about, but she's so cute and she's so sweet. And she likes to go hiking with me, especially at Wolf's Neck, if y'all have ever been there.
Awesome. Thanks. Sophia, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so I figured I'd start with just, what even is a digital agency? I think we've mentioned that a couple of times. That's where we work. That's what ADAPT is, right? So we are an organization made up of strategists, organizers, designers, developers. We work with other companies who have a mission that requires a presence on the web or in an app. We integrate into their already established internal team to help them think in smart ways about how to further their objectives digitally. So we're their digital partner, basically. Sometimes we are a handful of developers led by their team in a multi-year effort to build and maintain a large online presence. Sometimes we tackle a whole initiative from start to finish, conception to launch. The idea of it, the design of it, the coding of it, the launch, like building a website or an app from the ground up. Our structure has some hierarchy by default, but how we manage our team doesn't. In other words, we have our official titles, but when it comes to selling, planning, or managing a project or building a client relationship, it's more about how we interact and collaborate with each other, and each meeting or each initiative might be different. It's about recognizing that one of our senior developers is also fantastic at leading a team of slightly more junior folks, making sure they're supported and encouraged and have what they need to succeed, and structuring the tickets and sprints to work with the makeup of the team. And another of our senior developers really just likes to be in the code, and he doesn't have the strengths in that other area. So recognizing that about our team members and how they work together. We have full-time team members in Maine and the Northeast, and then as far afield as Peru and Europe, like I was mentioning. Over the past 3 years, ADAPT US has gone from about 3 people to, again, we're getting close to 20, I think. And we're working on hiring a few more right now. We collaborate closely with our other business units, depending on the makeup of a given project. For example, 2 of our senior UX is usability. So when a user comes to a website, we want to make sure that it's all about them, that they're finding what they need, that they're able to get where they need to go. So UX is what we call that. And design guys, they'll be flying over from Denmark in a month or so to kick off a big web project that we just landed. So that's kind of who we are in a nutshell, just in terms of being a digital agency. If you want to go to the next slide. The internet is for everyone. That's kind of our mantra. Go to the next one. So in November of last year, the management team met up with Tommy and Creston in Maine, and we talked about how quickly we were scaling up and how our goals in 2022 were a head and shoulders above our goals for 2021, just in a whole different ballpark. We talked about what they should be. Cue the sticky note brainstorm. One thing that did not make the cut of our top 3 goals is being more profitable. Sure, we need to make a profit to sustain the business, right? And be able to give back to our employees and our community, but we don't need to make a bigger profit just for the sake of profit itself. As we're living in a world where climate change is a real crisis, Black lives continue to be in danger, Russia is still at war with Ukraine, women around the world are fighting for basic human rights. Our number 1 goal was decided to be doing good, giving back, supporting our local and global communities, and supporting the green and blue economies. It felt like something that was really close to all of our hearts, and something that would, make us want to get up in the morning and want to come to work and want to further this goal for the world at large. Our number 2 goal revolved around building and retaining a strong team, because without your team, everything else is pretty much shot. Really the foundation for everything. And 3rd, we wanted to work on projects that give us energy, no pun intended, with clients who are in alignment with our core values. You want to go to the next slide? Yep, perfect. So this is something that we took a look at, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I don't know if you guys have heard of these. We call them SDGs for short. Were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people can enjoy peace and prosperity. They're very broad and far-reaching and optimistic and big, right? But like this is where we need to be looking forward. So we've picked 3 to focus on personally at Adapt, because they are the ones most aligned with being a digital agency, and also some that we care deeply about as individuals that we just want to support in some way. Trying to support our local and global community is nothing new to us. Some of our recent initiatives have been supporting the Ukraine and reproductive rights, but the SDGs give us a new focus as a company to make sure this kind of thing is really at the forefront of everything that we do, a driving factor as opposed to a side project. And this goes right along with our view of being transformational versus transactional, which Sophia will talk about later, with all of our clients and initiatives, proactive over reactive. Next slide. So these are the sub-targets under these. So 5.1, it's about ending discrimination against women and girls. 7.3 is about improving energy efficiency. 10.2 is about diversity and accessibility. So some of the tangible things we're doing related to these is building more accessible websites that use less energy and hosting them with green hosts, because that's something that a digital agency can do, right? But also we're doing side initiatives that directly support a cause like Ukraine or women's rights. And we're networking with other local businesses to raise awareness and money for good causes. Next slide. And so here's a few of our current and recent initiatives related to all of this. We have our Portland home base in the Hoos at the New England Ocean Cluster, which is a beautiful co-working space filled with tenants who support the blue and green economies in some way. In other words, companies where this world we live in is intrinsic to how they run their businesses, not just an afterthought. We are, I believe, the only digital agency in there because it's kind of it's a thing not a lot of digital agencies are thinking about yet, but I think it will be something that becomes important to more and more people. We work with the New Mainers Resource Center to help foreign trained professionals overcome barriers to enter the US workforce. Our Lithuanian team built a fundraising website for the war in Ukraine. We built a website to help educate about reproductive rights, and we are working on building a network of organizations and agencies to help amplify our voice so we can make a greater impact. And we volunteer most recently at the Maine Foodscapes by building raised garden beds in the community. So it really is something that is important to us. I know I'm harping on this a lot, but this is like kind of the core of who we are and a little bit about what we do. And we'll get more into what we do coming up. Next slide. So yeah, I was thinking that it might make sense. Let's take a minute maybe to think about a couple of questions, and you guys can jot down your answers to them. If anyone wants to share, that would be fantastic. Wanted to kind of have a couple points during this presentation where it's not just us talking at you and you can actually have a turn. So the first questions I wanted to ask were, what are the top things that are important to you in an organization where you work? Think about the team, the culture, the clients, the work. Think about remote work versus in-office work. Think about what level of structure you like, corporate versus a startup. What energizes you? What makes you get up in the morning? And maybe I'll just pause for a minute, let you guys think about that. And then if anybody wants to share, please feel free. You can also put anything in the chat if you want to put anything in the chat. I know sometimes that's easier, or just shout it out. I don't think there's so many of us that will all talk over each other. So we'll give it another minute.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to shout it out. I'll shout out something. I think that the breathing exercise that you did showed me that you're interested, and it's important to you, your company, that people are calm, have minutes to breathe, have, time for themselves. And that's definitely important to me if I'm thinking about where I want to work. Putting people first, staff first, employees first, is important.
Anyone else have any thoughts on what's important to you in a place that you work?
Hi there, this is Mike. I would say I run a team of PM implementation teammates. They're all over the country, but with people being around the country, it gets harder to I always love connecting with my team in person. Obviously that's as we've grown to hire people around, and I think that's what you guys are experiencing, is just trying to keep that team and making sure they're taken care of when you don't see them all day, and you can't get that vibe if someone's father's in the hospital or whatnot. You forget it every day. So it's sort of balancing that, but also knowing the other big thing I try to work on or worry about a lot is these are the best practices, but I don't want to micromanage you, and I want you to go out and learn and do, but I don't want to find out oh my goodness, what are you doing? So it's sort of that balance of, I always struggle with that. This is the best practice, train you, now go off and do it, but I don't want to feel like they're being watched, but I still need those best practices followed.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah, that's actually something that we've talked about internally too, right? What is the best balance between having milestones, guidelines, best practices, but giving people the freedom to do things the best way for each project or each initiative or each team or whatever that is. So it's a good conversation to have. And I think it might be different for different organizations and different personalities and roles. Awesome. Anything else, guys? Or should we move to the next?
We have a couple of things in the chat too. But if someone else would like to say something, go right ahead.
Yep, being
Pets.
all in it
Pets are
together.
very important. Companies that embrace your pets as well as your own well-being.
Yes. Honestly, is there anyone in the room who's like, oh man, I didn't want to see that cat. I want to hear that dog. Camaraderie of a matrix structured organization, cross-functional opportunities to bring departments together. I'm just reading what's in chat. Empowering my stakeholders to grow, learn, and achieve throughout the timeline of a project. Great. And if you guys think of anything as we go too, feel free to just put it in chat. We'll kind of collect these and maybe share them around afterwards. If that feels like something that would be good to do. Doing good, knowing that I'm helping, making a difference, even if it's just a small thing. Absolutely. Yeah, keep it coming. Keep that chat active while we keep talking. It's not all about just listening to us, but why don't I move on to the next one? Yep. And actually, Keisha, this is your section, all about our clients and how they're doing good too.
Yeah, so one of my favorite things about being a project manager is the ability to advocate for companies and projects that match your values. And I think we're beating a dead horse, but it's so important for us to have projects that match our values. So if you go to the next slide, I'm just going to highlight a couple of our projects that we've worked on lately, me specific on a lot of these. So we had Green Hydrogen Compact, right? So because of our Danish roots, ADAPT was founded in Copenhagen. The Danish consulate in New York City asked us to consult for them to help them with their Green Hydrogen Compact catalog. So it's a platform that's supposed to help accelerate the development and expansion of the green hydrogen value chain worldwide. In layman's terms, I would say this is a project where it's a platform for you to see what maybe your country is agreeing to do, right? So some of these compacts are like, by the year 2030, our power grid will be 70% powered by wind, right? And we're going to have this small amount of reliance on fossil fuels. But everybody gets to make their own compact. And so you get to kind of browse through them and learn about them. And this has been around for a little bit. Green hydrogen had outgrown a very, very simple Wix site. So what they needed was something that was visually appealing. They wanted to partner with us to help make something more interactive to inspire others. And I mean, sometimes we're talking about on the country level. There are countries that are doing these compacts here. And help readers, people like you and me and anybody on the internet, understand the concept of what a compact is and how this is going to be impactful. So it needed to also be easy to maintain for admins and content creators, because these people are not necessarily very technical. So we also needed a strong handoff training. I'm very excited about that. Next slide. So you can kind of see our results here. We've got, that's a really nice graphic. It is scalable. It's a WordPress solution. We're available, you know, hopefully in the future when they need to grow this platform, we can help them do that. One of our big things is we wanted to be SEO impactful. We want to help people hear about this. Yeah, and again, ease of use for non-technical contributors. Next slide. Thank you. So we've also worked with Sustainmetrics, and Sustainmetrics is a fun one. We met them because they are in the hoose with us, which Tess already kind of explained a little bit, in that New England Ocean Cluster building where we all are in Portland. So this is our neighbors. They've got an office just down the hall from us. And they build, apply, and customize frameworks, tools, and methods to sequence and prioritize what's needed to navigate and adapt to ecosystem change. So they have a diverse portfolio of stewardship actions for more resilient bioregion, which is a very important thing, and especially in Maine, where agriculture and aquaculture is getting really scrutinized and people are honing in on it. I don't know if you guys all have access to this, but there are a lot of links in this this presentation, and maybe we should find a way to send this out for everyone if y'all want to click around and see. So what we did for them was we helped them launch their initiative. They are hosting a bioregional learning journey, and it's going to consider the intersection of food systems and wastewater treatment, current health and future trajectory of seagrass meadows in Casco Bay. So this is something that really hits a lot of our values And we definitely want to help. And as you guys probably all know, Casco Bay is the big bay that, Portland is right off of. So it's very close to home. So we partnered with them to conceive and design and launch a website for that event. And it was an absolute pleasure. Next slide. So we've got a great quote here from Glenn Page, and he's the president of Sustainmetrics. So the partnership we developed with ADAPT for the website development and brand awareness was transformative for our work on a wide range of local, regional, national, and global sustainability issues. And not to toot our own horn, but everybody here knows when you're a project manager and you get feedback like that, it feels great and you're doing right. So that's fantastic. Just wanted to share that. Next slide. So another project that I am helping with is Rare Catch Carbon. So the client is Rare, and Catch Carbon is the project. So mainly what Catch Carbon is about is bridging the gap between carbon sequestering projects and individuals. So there's a lot of carbon sequestering things in the world, right? It might be an old growth forest. It might be a peat moss bog. These are things that naturally sequester carbon and keep them out of our atmosphere. So buying carbon offsets is one action that consumers here, just people with access to the internet and some disposable income can take, and it'll have a big impact on slowing climate change. And even though the majority of Americans are concerned about climate change and want to do something, most people don't know how. So we're trying to help them bridge that gap, right? Between carbon offset providers, companies that want to offer offsets to their customers and consumers, and individual people like us. So this bridges that gap. So the actual project was and is, we're actively doing this. We'll be having this launch soon, where it has a project database where there's projects which are carbon sequestering projects that people can donate to. And so we leverage an API to pull in the data, display it in a way that inspires and educates users, helps them get the word out about how they're helping. And we're structuring this project as an MVP project so we can go to market really quickly. And we're planning on subsequent iteration based on real data. So we really want to be super agile on this, which is part of being a digital agency. So those are just some of our clients that we wanted to highlight. Does anyone have any questions for me while I'm here?
I do. Oh, go ahead, Benga.
All right. So thank you for the presentation. It has really been enlightening. But one thing I noted is that you are primarily a web designer company. I don't know whether I'm correct with that description, but maybe a designer with a difference. Excuse me.
Yeah,
you have clients in various areas of specialization. We're talking about carbon sequestering and aquaculture and all that. So does it mean now that, excuse me, that you need to do some studies into the specific line of business of your clients, get to understand their goals, their objectives, their values, and then you are trying to design a web presence to project the purpose or the image or the objectives of your client, so that you are really, okay, I think it's adapt. So you adapt to each individual client. Am I correct with that description?
Yes, and that's kind of the beauty of being at a digital agency like we are, is that instead of working on one thing all the time, we get to partner with all these other cool people and organizations, right? So there is a certain amount that we learn about what they're working on and what they're trying to achieve and what their goals are. And then we can come at it from our perspective of having the best practices for the web, you know, for how to build it, for how to make it accessible, for how to make it easy for users to use. So it's a partnership between these organizations that are experts at what they do and us who are experts at what we do. So yeah, you have it right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and Roseanne, you had asked in chat, how do you attract clients, projects that meet your values? Yeah, a lot of it is networking, honestly. I mean, we do reach out, you know, there's a bit of cold calling and things, but a lot of what we end up with and our best partnerships end up being through our network, you know, people who know people, or we do something and we meet new people through it, and then they come to us too, and they see what we're doing. And so it's really all about the people in the network and the connections that we make. For the majority of it, you know, not all of it. We definitely reach out on RFPs and you know, go through the sales project on some things that we're interested in as well. Yep, yeah, exactly. Sorry, Sophia, you already answered that in chat. I'm over here over talking. Awesome. Keisha, do you want to go to the next slide about you know, what is it that a PM specifically does to kind of like make these projects successful?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it already, but just to really nail it home, like, you know, we've got this great stewardship piece, and I think that we all feel really strongly about that. I know that most people on this call are going to know, like, sometimes when you're a PM, it's like you're leading with absolutely no authority, or you're in charge, but everyone else is a cat. And it's really amazing to be able to leverage all your life skills and all the skills that you bring to the table to help empower people and connect experts. That's a huge skill. And the structuring and guiding, flagging, pivoting, you know, Sophia's going to talk a lot more about not being so reactionary. And that's a really powerful tool in our toolkit. Communication is huge. We believe very strongly in over communicating. And I think that's really important. And it's been a pleasure to practice that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we try specifically with our team to empower our team to be more than just the babysitters or the schedulers. And it's like, yes, you have to do some of that stuff as part of being a PM, but you know, it's not just about that. It's more about guiding the project based on goals and risks and experience, holding people accountable, knowing when to change gears or when to push back. So definitely, I think we try to have sort of a larger, more like value add role with what we do on these projects. Awesome. Next slide. Yeah. So go ahead again to the next one. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our sort of team culture, our global team, our team composition, that sort of thing. So as we've been scaling up so fast, we've had to keep asking ourselves the question, what is our culture and how do we maintain it? What makes us different? What makes Adapt a place we all want to be? Some of those answers that we found are, we love being global. We think it's important to not have hustle culture. We feel people are more effective when they also get a chance to have some time outside of work that is their own, right? We love having different perspectives on the team and different backgrounds. We take responsibility for what we say we're going to do, and we see something that needs doing, we do it. And if we get stuck, we ask for help. It's a very supportive culture as well. Keisha actually had a really interesting challenge. So some of the things that we do as PMs, we end up kind of championing internal initiatives as well. So we have a team meeting, as many of you may have had at your organizations. I found in the past that some team meetings I've been at organizations are, you know, it's the thing you have to go to. It's the fun thing that's required to go to, right? So, and that's great when you're a team of 5 people, but as you get bigger, it gets tough to maintain that. So Keisha had an interesting challenge revolving around our team meeting, which, right, is very different with 15 people than with 5. So she set up different topics throughout the month, One will be a game of some sort, one will be a chat, one will be a spotlight on someone where someone shares about what they do and who they are. And people can pick one or more a month to attend based on their busyness level, what they're interested in, what they're excited to be a part of. So we definitely get a lot of people more engaged in that sense. And it's less of a requirement and more, it becomes back a fun thing to do. And then we have a monthly, more formal one called Rock, where attendance is required and each team shares important information from the month that everyone needs to hear. But it's like a nice balance of maintaining the culture a little bit, getting to see each other, and again, as a mostly virtual organization, it's really great to have a place where we can get to know each other as people and, have that check-in, but without it feeling forced. Next slide. Global, yeah, virtual, global. So I heard something during the pandemic about middle managers not knowing how to track whether their employees were being productive if they weren't sitting within eyesight at their desks 8 hours a day. Because this is a big shift, right? A shift with the pandemic, and a lot of places have gone virtual or hybrid. But this perspective has never really made sense to me. And I think this is partly because we are lucky enough to have a team full of leaders and people who are driven to be awesome at what they do. But as we scale up, it will become more and more about the framework we have in place as well. I'm not talking about some sort of overbuilt documentation that turns us into a bureaucratic organization, a corporate organization that can't get out of their own way and takes 3 months to accomplish anything. But it is important to have a few guidelines we're super clear on. For example, logging your time every single day, letting a PM know if you're ever confused about blocked on one of your projects. But beyond that, people work when they want to work at Adapt. They get their stuff done. We don't police them. People use their calendars to make sure people know when people are available. And we find it's really freeing for people and lets them put more of their energy into just doing a good job on things and getting stuff done. Next slide. All right, team composition. Yeah, this was just an interesting quick one, and I'm going to go kind of quickly because I want to get to Sophia's section, and I know we're actually getting towards 7 here, and I want to leave some time for questions too. But team composition, I just wanted to talk a little bit. We are actually working on building what we're calling clusters as we get bigger, which are essentially teams of people from PMs to developers, because being one team of 15 or 20 or 30 people starts to get unwieldy when you're talking about staffing projects and not having them be too lumpy as they change, as they grow, as we get new ones. Now in Denmark, in our Denmark business unit, they call them clusters. In Lithuania, they call them hives. And we are currently crowdsourcing a name for the US team. So if anybody has any good ideas of what we can call these smaller groups within the organization that are the full, complement of team members, definitely throw it in chat or let us know afterwards. Open to your suggestions. Why don't you go a couple slides to the how we hire, Sophia? Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I use this term a lot, which is humble leaders, which is we want people on the team who can get in a room and feel empowered to voice their opinion, to raise concerns, to share ideas, right? And we also want people who know what they don't know, who don't feel like they're the person in the room that knows everything. So when I hire people, it's for me, it's not about checking off boxes or completing tickets. Yes, we do that too, but it's about knowing when to make your voice heard, when to flag a problem, when to pivot. And so I really look for that personality and that perspective when I hire new people. Go to the next slide. When we hire, so we look at this from a few angles. One is if we have a big project coming on top of what we already have, we look into hiring. Sometimes that means contractors or partners for a short time. Sometimes if it looks like we have a 50 to 80% chance of filling up someone's plate, it's time to hire someone full time. If our overall team composition is missing some pieces, for example, maybe we have senior developers and junior developers, but no middle ground there. And so it's hard to make these cohesive teams that function well together. We look at how we can build the teams better. And also we try not to have just contractors on a project. If we do, it's time to hire. And so as an agency, we have some projects that are fairly smooth, ongoing, consistent number of hours, consistent people. But then we also have projects that we land and all of a sudden we need, 1,000 hours of time that we need to carve out for who that team's going to be. And so it's always a little lumpy. It's never going to be perfectly smooth, but we try to be, a good mixture of reactive and proactive as much as we can. Next slide. Questions I ask people when I'm interviewing them. For me, it's more about guidelines and milestones over specific steps. I ask people in interviews how comfortable they are with just having some goals and some milestones on projects versus having a list of steps to get from one to the next, because I know those are two different personalities and I know which one works better for us at Adapt. I think we really tend to work well with people who can take those broad strokes and then use their smart brains to figure out how to get from point A to point B on different projects in different situations with different clients. For me, it's also about leadership and initiative over certifications. Education experience certifications are great, but I'll take someone without them over someone with them if I know they'll feel empowered to really lead their projects, communicate when they need a sounding board or have a concern, be able to approach things differently in different projects and situations as needed. For me, that's something that I really value. Some other key questions I always ask in interviews: what sorts of work, tasks, projects, teams gets you energized? How do you approach needing to learn your way around something unfamiliar? What do you do when you have too much on your own plate? And what do you do if working extra hours still isn't enough or not sustainable? Because of course it never is. What is an example of a hard conversation you've had to have with a client? And what would you do if you see something we do as a company that you don't think is working well? And I find that I have some really good conversations out of that and really get to the root of who people are and how they interact pretty quickly, which is what it comes down to me. Next slide. And Roseanne, we have until 7:30, right? But I know we're leaving room for questions, but just to check.
Yeah, the program does go till 7:30, but if people need to drop off early, that's fine. But we do want to leave room for questions because I think we're going to have some.
Okay, I think we're getting close. I'll go quickly through my last couple, so Sophia has a turn here. Onboarding, I just want to talk about, how that process works for us. Now, to date, we've mostly onboarded fairly senior folks to build the foundation for this US team. That's just sort of how the composition has been made up to date. So that may skew this process a little, it may change. But in general, we don't believe in, and maybe we're not big enough to need, right? We don't believe in months of training that is separate from the actual job. I think that will stay, actually. I think that's part of our culture. Training for us, for new PMs and everyone, happens as part of projects, even if some of that is behind the scenes, even if some of that is mentored. It's real and it's tangible, and we know pretty quickly if someone is a good fit. Next slide. My last one, I promise. All right, the future of Adapt delivery. So far we've been growing very steadily as a company. Well, more like steps, but quickly. This is our managing director, Doug Cisco. Doug was talking to me about growth, and he bent a straw wrapper into steps. And if that doesn't sum this up, I don't know what does. We are currently in one of those vertical bits, if anyone is wondering. When I started, I was full-time working with one client portfolio, which was our largest at the time. I went on to manage a handful of other things too. I hired Keisha, who took over a bunch as we grew. I hired Sophia, who took over that big client and a few others. And at this point, both of them have a couple of large clients and a couple of small ones, trying to have a good mixture of, those ongoing ones, those ones that don't need a whole lot of PM touch points, and those ones that need a lot of strategic thinking to make sure that there's a good balance. And my role has become more of building and managing teams, defining processes, helping us scale overall, working with management to define who we want to become. I also oversee projects on kind of a 10,000-foot level, checking in, helping in sticky situations, making sure my PMs don't need support on something, maintaining client relationships. But going forward, I mean, we're growing, but we aren't scaling just to be bigger. We're doing it intentionally. But being a bit bigger means that we have more flexibility to pay our employees well, partner with really cool clients, and give back, which is, after all, our #1 goal. Next slide. This is just some more questions. I kind of want to get Sophia to your, so let's not worry about this one. Let's go on to you if you don't mind. Transformational.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about who we are, how we've kind of built the PM team, and talked a little about some of the clients that we have. And I'd really like to bring this full circle and kind of talk about, well, what does this mean for us as PMs? And our goals here are to have transformational engagements, not just for our clients, but also for us, because we're all humans in this interaction. And if we're not all growing and learning from the experience, then how are we able to consider ourselves present and bringing our best selves to it? And so hang on, technical difficulties. I clicked the wrong button. There we go. So it kind of brings us to this leadership theory that we've kind of adapted to our PM practice here. And we'll talk about transactional versus transformational. A lot of interactions start transactional, where we have a contract, you've got to deliver this project and this timeline, and we're going to pay you money for that process. Great. That's how we get our foot in the door, and that's how we start a conversation. And in those types of transactional situations, we're generally thinking about, okay, we've got to get it done. We've got to make sure we've got all of our controls and our processes on lock. We need to know how to manage this project, and we're going to get it done. We're going to make them happy. And then we're very reactive to the things that they tell us when things are, maybe things aren't going well. Maybe what we're delivering isn't meeting their expectations. And we feel very reactive to those comments, because we're transactional with those clients. And so we try to take them into a place where we consider it to be transformational, where we're building a relationship and we're building trust with the client. And this could also be applied in situations where you're internal to a company and you've got stakeholders across departments. We had a comment earlier about matrixed organizations and how you've got to be this. A lot of times project managers become the person who connects the dots and extends that olive branch across to a different department. Well, all of that plays here, where we're trying to change the way that people interact with each other. We want to be proactive. We want to be more of a partner than a project deliverer, which is, again, Tess talked about it. It pays the bills. It's how we maintain our profit. But at the core of everything that we do, it's about the people. And we get there by having these transformational engagements. And so what does that do for us as PMs? It takes us from just being the person who's managing the timeline and the budget and the tasks associated, but we become a strategist for that client, for those stakeholders. We become the one who's hearing what isn't being said. And I love that, because we're the ones who we attend most of the meetings. We're talking to all of the different people involved in a project. And a lot of times you'll pick up on something that seems like it's just there under the surface. Oh, here's a business goal that we want to achieve. And you take a moment and you reflect on that and you say, how is our project playing into that for the client? And maybe it sparks a question. Maybe it's an in with someone to say, hey, I was thinking about this thing you said. It really resonated with me, and here's why, and here's how I think our project can help, or here's something else that we could be doing differently that could help you achieve that business goal. I'll give you an example with one of the clients that I have. We started off as just being a team that was delivering extra staffing or resources for them because they didn't have enough people to get all their work done. And through the engagement, we really learned that, you know, they have some really big goals that they want to achieve as a company. And well, the best use of us is not necessarily just being the receivers of information and then turning a ticket around and getting it complete. You know, why don't you bring us in as a standalone team that has a specific goal and has specific things that tie into your strategy so that we're able to not only bridge that gap that you have from a staffing perspective, but we're also achieving specific goals related to your business. And that has done wonders for them and for our relationship, because now they see us as a valued partner that's not only helping them improve their business processes and achieve their business goals, but we're the people who are doing it, and they are valuing us and the contributions that we're making. But that doesn't mean that it's all sunshine and roses and it's not unicorns and fairies and all of that, because things do go sideways. And what is that? What do we do? Like, we're trying to be transformational and we're trying to be the best friend to these guys that we can be, and you know, telling them when we think things aren't going well, and giving them insights into how we think things might be done better. But at the end of the day, we're all human, and you know, stuff happens. Sometimes things don't go to plan. Sometimes we're just sitting there and then some unknown technology thing just throws a curveball at us. And in the beginning of an engagement or in the beginning of a project, you know, we talk about, you know, what are the risks to this project? What could derail this? And we spend a lot of time figuring out how can we mitigate those? How can we prevent them from occurring? How can we handle them if they come up? But it's not just about what plan we get, because no matter what plan we have when we start, it's not going to be 100% solution to whatever the problem is that arises. It's usually a solution to get us on the right path to a solution. So that's when we have to open up our toolbox and say, what are we going to do? And in a lot of cases, when we've built these transformational relationships, we are able to use our soft skills more to help guide some of those decisions, because it's not just about, you know, what I think and what I think is going to get the project back on track. It's us using our intellectual flexibility, which is just like this really cool buzzword for how do we keep our egos in check so that when these things happen, we're open to what other people's ideas and what other people's perceptions is of the problem. Because especially in our business, when we're dealing with clients who have their own companies and they have their own internal things that, you know, we may not be aware of them. And when they bring those things to us and they give us that added context and we're open to it, we're better able to figure out what the root cause is, and we're better able to address a problem and get to a point where it's not just about, okay, here's a problem, here's a solution. It's here's the problem. We know why it happened. We keep it from happening again. We make the team better, and we get the project back on track. And a lot of this is really about what we feel is our personal character and how we approach those interactions with other people. Yeah, it's really heavy stuff, but it's really great once you see it come to fruition, you know what I mean? So I want to take a pause here and ask a question. What is it like for you in your companies and your organizations? Does your culture really value that transformational approach, or are things really transactional? You know, you've got a job, do your job. Your insights, your expertise, it's kind of, it's in the back. Let us know. Let's drop it in the chat. Have a conversation.
And I think there's no right or wrong answer, right? Like, I think every organization is different, and we're all in different places, but like, it's an interesting conversation to have, an interesting thing to kind of reflect on. So yeah, I'd love to hear if anybody wants to share how it is for them.
Hi, Tess and Sophia. I'll speak up. I work at CVS Aetna, and I would say that my company does value a transformational approach in that project managers are sought after not just as relationship builders, trust inspirers, motivators, cross-functional department healers, if you will, but also in many cases sought after as subject matter experts and eventually trusted along the course of various projects by stakeholders to provide that intuition you're speaking of. And I think that is the art of project management that can't be taught. You mentioned that at your company, project management terms are not just words, they're actions. And I think a true project manager embodies that. And that is known as the art side of project management, as opposed to just dry skills.
That's right. That's right. I called it soft skills, but yeah, it is definitely the art, because when you're dealing with humans and when you're dealing with things that may be in flux, it's all about how you react. We don't react, we're proactive. But it is all about how you approach it and the things that you do to be able to get over those hurdles. Yeah, Barry made a good point. Depends on the department. Absolutely. Some of them are a little more archaic and very transactional, and others are very forward thinking. Yeah. So we've got just about 15 minutes left, and we just wanted to pop some ideas up here about things that might spur some questions for you, or things that you may want to talk about with us.
Yeah, and I also wanted to just add, you guys will notice we talked a lot more about culture and process, I think, than we talked about tools. I don't think we mentioned software once. And we didn't even really talk about, agile versus waterfall, but because for us, that's what it's about. Everything is a tool that we use to further our clients' goals and keep us on track. But it's kind of more about that bigger picture stuff. But I mean, if you guys have any specific questions on any of that as well, or on any of these kind of question prompts, definitely shout it out. Let us know.
I have a question for you. Do you feel with what you do, your PMs need to be slightly knowledgeable or almost content experts in the projects they're managing? Or do you shy away from someone who's like, oh, I was a construction project manager, give me a try?
Oh, goodness. Well, this is actually the first position that I've had that I've been working with digital projects. So it kind of, what you've just said really resonates with me, because I came into this having never managed a digital project before. And I feel like there's no right or wrong way to do it. And you don't have to be the expert in the room. There's a lot of learning that happens when you're exposed to it. So you kind of have that osmosis factor where, you get exposed to something so long, you just kind of start picking it up, and you start to understand what it is that's going on. But, in the beginning, it was really about how do I utilize the team to make sure that we're delivering the best project that we can for the clients. We've got exceptional engineers. We have amazing management team. We have a lot of experience across the team and across the company. So it's not just about whether the PM is the smartest person in the room. It's about making sure that the PM knows who they can reach out to get support, to get answers, to really have that collective approach to what are we trying to solve, and who's got the right skills or the right experience to be able to address it.
Great, thank you.
My pleasure. Are there any other questions?
I wouldn't say I had a question, but looking at the question, is there anything that you were inspired to try? I really like the conversation that you were talking about with, it's not about a task list. It's about getting the work done and kind of going from A to B and knowing in your head kind of what needs to happen. I find like in my company, it's more about the task lists and how do you get to that transactional basis. So for me, I'm more about, well, let's trust the team and how we're going to get to A and B, and do they need my help to get there? So that was going to take that back more. So thank you for that.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear you had that takeaway.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's all about finding the right balance, right? Like, and I imagine, I mean, what we do is different than what a lot of you guys do, right? It's all management, but I'm sure it's very different in some ways. And it's about finding the right balance in whatever you're doing, between knowing what steps have to be done and having that freedom to work within them and in between them, right? And be smart about things.
One question that I had that popped into my head fairly early on. You had talked about one of the big goals that you guys work on is equality for women, or getting rid of discrimination against women in the world. And I'm curious as to, it's a sort of a three-part question. Where do you see things the best for women at this point? Where do you see it the worst? And where has surprised you? Where have you found where it's like, oh geez, I didn't expect that out of them,
Oh my goodness.
I feel like my own country has surprised me, right?
I was going there too.
Right, but I think I've heard a lot of big talk over the years about how it is in other countries, and so it was very surprising to me to see the things that have been happening here. And it is, it's scary. It's also it's inspiring to see how everyone is approaching this, and to talk to people who are like-minded and who care and who want to help somehow, so it's, yeah, I don't think I necessarily answered your whole question, but that was my most surprising.
I'd like to give some credit to our Danish and Lithuanian colleagues in a lot of what we've done, because they obviously, since they're in Europe, they have completely different political systems. They have different social networks and social safety nets set up for their citizens, and so there was a lot that we kind of went through with talking to them and getting their support for what we wanted to do with our reproductive rights initiative, and their insights were really great, because they've spent a lot of time with different challenges, whether or not it's reproductive rights or it's women's rights, but they gave us a lot of insight into the things that work well when you're trying to activate a network, and when you're trying to activate the response from folks, whether it's show up for this event, or hey, you should donate to this because you care about it. They were really, I would say, some of our biggest champions, and I wouldn't call it surprising, but it was a little unexpected that they came out in such support and in such force for what we were trying to achieve.
I know there was a request to share the slides, and yeah, we'll be able to get the slide deck out to the attendees of the program, so you can have some of the links and some of the contact info if you want to continue the conversation with this great group from ADAPT.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep in touch.
That's right. Thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.